Hey, this is Scott with the man's mental load. Here she is again. She talks about her being a type A mom and what she does and what she doesn't do. But see, she's admitting it herself. She's a type A personality. And I really think that, we're talking about the man's mental load. We kind of get the short end of the stick, no pun intended. We keep on hearing these female influencers, and we even hear this guy, Scott Galloway, who's the new flavor of the month. Oprah's interviewed him. He's been on the Today Show, and this Scott Galloway guy, he knows everything about everything, from stocks to relationships to young men to nature. I mean, this Scott Galloway guy, I don't know where he came from, but the media has just really elevated him, and he just doesn't talk about what I'm going to talk about right now. And if he does talk about it, he kind of goes over it very lightly. And it goes back to her about being the type A mom. So let's talk about her first before we go into Scott Galloway. She realizes this in herself, how she is, right? And she made choices. She chose to marry this guy who she knew from a young age, perfect on paper, absolutely checked all the boxes on paper. And then she talks to the man's mom, and the mom says, hey, don't do his laundry, make him do his own laundry. And so I think she's kind of started this whole marriage thing, and now 4 young children, spending $60,000 a year in daycare. And the last couple of videos of hers have just been, I just want to fall out of my chair. The moms are the ones who bring the holiday magic, and, the man's out golfing. He's away from the home for hours on end. And men don't volunteer at the school, and just this man-hating, husband-hating vitriol. And if she spent enough time maybe talking to her husband or going to counseling instead of going on social media talking about the mental load, maybe her marriage would be better. And maybe it is better. She did say that 3 years ago she was really considering divorcing him because the mental load was just overwhelming. He didn't know what size shoes the kids wore, didn't fill out the online school forms, and she just sounded miserable. But I guess she sat him down and said, hey, this is the way it's going to be, and he dutifully complied, and he probably realized cheaper to keep her. But I would love for TMZ or somebody to go find this guy and interview him. What do you think about your wife doing all these videos throwing you and other men under the bus? I've been married, it'll be 42 years in January, and I clean bathrooms, I've changed diapers, I volunteered, like a school field trip for my kids. And there's a lot of guys who don't get the recognition for the stuff they do. And when we do stuff, we have her saying, oh, they'll take out the trash for a week, but they don't own it, and they don't do it forever. And then she talks about how society, she talks about when the man takes the children to school and the children, their hair is not brushed and their clothes aren't on straight. No one questions the man if the child is untidy or if the book bag isn't packed correctly. But society just puts all this pressure on women to be perfect. And she needs to listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, and because Gary says don't let society or other people dictate your happiness or unhappiness, and she needs to learn from Gary that. And the other thing is another thing Gary Vaynerchuk could teach her if she listens to him, is being grateful. You very rarely hear her being grateful that her children are healthy, that she's healthy, that she has a lineman husband, probably making a lot of money out there, blue collar, working hard to provide for his family. And that's where we go back to the man's mental load. What are we thinking about? We're thinking about making, remember the old Ed Sullivan show? You may not be old enough to remember it, but I do. And there's a guy with like 10 sticks, and he had like 10 plates spinning at one time on these 10 sticks. And that's what we guys do. We got to spin those plates and keep them spinning. I also saw a video the other day about guys being the emotional regulator for the woman when menopause or their periods, and they're all emotional. They're not logical. They're just driven, and she is driven with emotion. I don't know if she's hitting menopause or what. She may be heading that way. Boy, she's gonna really hit it when she hits menopause. You think she's bad now? Wait till her estrogen and progesterone and all that stuff starts going whack. And now he's gonna really be playing golf on the weekends. He may be taking up hunting, fishing, mountain biking, and parasailing, and rappelling from helicopters and wrestling bear and archery when she hits menopause. That's gonna be. Somebody get a video camera. She should talk about that. Hey, Paige, talk about menopause and hormone therapy, because when you get that, it's bad enough when a woman's pregnant. I'm hot, I'm cold, I hate you, I love you, look what you've done to me, look how fat I am, I used to be beautiful, and now look at me, and it's taken years to get my figure back. But like I said, nobody talks about the man's mental load. And let's go ahead and trash Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway just briefly covers that women have unrealistic expectations. Now, the Whatever podcast covers it. Better Bachelor covers it. Men need to be heard. He covers it. But the fact of the matter is, these young women coming up now have read books about not settling. They're not settling for the 5'9" guy who maybe weighs a little bit more, who has a 600 credit score. Not all. A lot of these young women coming up are wanting 6 foot, 900 credit score, 6-pack, established business owner, entrepreneur. And yeah, some of these girls are still wanting the DJ. They're still wanting the bad boy because that gives them a thrill. It gives them the excitement. But then, when they're always the bridesmaid and never the bride, what happens? They're looking around at Caitlin and Brandy and Amber, and they're all married and having kids. And I don't want. There's a couple of names I don't want to use because I know these names. Rachel. We can use. Well, Rachel. I know Rachel too. Let's say Cookie. Looks in the mirror and goes, "Oh my gosh, Brandy, Caitlin, Suzanne, all these Brittany, all these other girls are married with children. Look at me, I got my cat, I got my dog, but I want children too. My mom's asking me, and oh no, look at me, the wrinkles, I'm sagging, the cellulite. I better land a guy." And of course, we all know what that first question the guy's going to ask the girl. Type it in the comments before I say it here at the 8:02 mark. Type in the comments what the first question the guy's going to ask the girl. What's your body count? First question. Not if you've been married before, not if you got kids. What's your body count? Because he's going to say, listen, if you 20, 30, 40, 50 guys, how do I compare it? Because guys are like that, right? Comparing how we are with other guys. And if some other guy was more X or more Y, she's going to be holding out. Do a Google search on this calculator about men. Just Google search it and say man calculator, and then type in, okay, how many men in the USA or how many men in Illinois or how many men in Florida are 6 foot, 800 credit score, height, weight proportionate, makes 6 figures a year, makes $1 million a year. And that calculator should come back and tell the percentage of guys in that state or in the U.S. make that amount of money and that fit those parameters. And it's like 1%, 2%. And all these girls are looking for that 1 and 2% guy. Well, that 1, 2% guy is going to be very picky. The Brad Pitt guy, they're going to be picky. And they're not going to settle for a girl that's got a high body count. They're not going to settle for a girl who doesn't look good. They're not going to settle for a girl who is high maintenance. They're not going to settle for any of that. They're going to be very choosy. And if they're not choosy, then they're going to just be, knocking these girls out just for recreation, like Myron of Fresh and Fit says, just for it's more like Andrew Tate, not Myron. I don't think Myron says recreation. And forgive me, Myron, I love you, so I take that back. Myron's not saying recreation that I know of. It's Andrew Tate that says recreation. And any guy that has a daughter would not want their daughters being used as recreation. That being said, take a look at her videos. You'll see how just ungrateful, unhappy she is. And God help her kids, those 4 kids, when they get older and they look at her channel, and the kids are going to shake their heads and say, oh, man, Mom didn't like Dad. She didn't like us. Yeah, she made Christmas magical. Yes, she volunteered at our school. She was present. She was the default parent. But they're going to just shake their heads and say, man, why'd you throw Dad under the bus? He went to work every day. The Man's Mental Load. Happy New Year. Like and subscribe. Watch all the videos. Have a great year.